From Mother Nui right to your home, it's the Bionicle Inspiration Series. Good morning. Good morning. It's an early morning recording for me, so we might have a morning voice Ben, which you're probably going to be excited about, so excellent. Today, speaking of excellent things, we're going to be talking about Transformers, or as you could also call them, Bioformers. Obviously, just meaning Bionicle Transformer. So we got a few interesting ones today. Some very nice, fun-looking transformations, as well as some that don't actually transform. So I kind of want to just talk about the aesthetic of Transformers. I kind of touched upon it in a recent episode. I've always just appreciated the aesthetic of the robot modes of Transformers, just how they look, just the sort of sometimes more kind of blockier designs that they can have, or just kind of the aesthetic of mashing a vehicle with a robot, I think can actually just look really nice. And I think there's elements we can learn from that when we're making our own robot designs and things for a Transformer, or just any kind of humanoid Bionicle character that we're making, or even a non-humanoid one. We've got a few examples of that today as well. So yeah, there's a lot we can learn, I think, from Transformers. And also it's just really cool to see Bionicles that transform. So we're going to see a bunch of those today. So without further ado, let's begin. The first mock we've got today, it's by Poor Disadvantaged, and this is called Swampcraft. So this appears to be from a Robo Riders collab. This is just one of the many, so be sure to check the links in the description and see the link to Swampcraft here, and then check Poor Disadvantaged's post, and you'll see all the other different Robo Riders that were in this collab. And hey, maybe I'll even do an episode talking about these. I don't know, we'll figure that out. So I wanted to quickly show you the set that this is inspired by. It is a very tiny set, and a very cute little set. I actually really like the look of this. I like the fact that it is a little sort of baby Robo Rider. He's very tiny and cute. But by the way, I should say, Robo Riders, of course, were the theme that was more or less before Bionicle. Yeah, it was essentially these, like, robot riders, They were sort of sentient bikes, I guess. Not really. I don't know. But it was kind of this idea of they raced around, they had cool elemental powers, and they fought off people and stuff. It was a fun and cool theme, and it technically fits in with the realm of constructible action figures, as I struggle to say that. Apparently it's hard to say construction early in the morning. But what I like so much about this one is just, the fact that it is a different size, because all of them were more or less, very Bionicle-like. They were essentially the same model, but just colors would change, weapons would change, and little slight tweaks to them. But what I like so much about this one is the fact that he has weird legs. And I can see him really kind of zooming around different places as his legs kind of move up and down. And the weird sort of like pistons and beams and things allow him to really kind of go over lots of different places and traverse everything, all that sort of stuff. I think that's just a fun design. But I like, as we enter a more modern age and we look back on this set, you could kind of look at it and somewhat adapt it into more of a drone-like design, which is exactly what Poor Disadvantage has done here. I'll admit the original set doesn't really look like a drone at all, but, maybe from a certain point of view. But still, hey, Poor Disadvantage has taken the otherwise weird-looking concept, but fun-looking concept, and turned it into more of a drone and an original Robo Rider, and that's how the transformation here works. You can pop out those wheels, and they sort of fold up, and they become like rotor blades for that of a drone of sorts, or just some sort of flying craft. And I love that. Or even the fact that maybe it doesn't necessarily fly, and it just instead turns into like some sort of weapon. And it's like, hey, instead of my wheels being wheels, they're actually scary looking rotor blade things that will cut you up and make you have a bad time, So I think that's really cool. I like that idea, and I think it's a fairly simple, easy transformation, which, yes, it's nice to have a really difficult transformation where there's, 80 different steps, and once you follow all of them, it'll become a robot or it'll become a car or something. That's always fun. That's always nice. There's certainly a place for that in building a Transformer. But it's also really nice to just have, just flip this up and you're done, And that's pretty much what this one is here. You just more or less flip up the wheels and you're good to go, really. It's nothing else. And yeah, you don't have to break the bank. You can just have a fairly simple transformation and still get the job done and still get that joy of having a transformation in a Bionicle, Yeah, okay, yeah, I guess you flip those weapons over as well, and I guess that counts. But, it works. It's whatever, But I love this. I think this is a fantastic idea and a great way of representing not only the original Robo Riders in their original forms, but yeah, really changing the way that the set looked, because this more like drone-like form sort of matches the way that the wheels were kind of laid out on the original set, but takes it into a new realm. I think that's super, super cool and super unique as well. Some other stuff that I like about this is the weapons specifically. I like the fact that they do flip up and flip down. They sort of fold backwards and sort of look a little bit more like aerodynamic, so that perhaps he gets a bit more speed as he's racing around. But this kind of, to some degree, look a little bit like leaves, more like robot cyber leaves of sort. That might be a little bit of a stretch, but I like the fact that to some degree it could tie back to the element, just with the way that they sort of fan out like a leaf, perhaps. I don't know. Again, that might be a bit of a stretch, but still, aesthetically, they also look really nice, just how they flow backwards like that, or how they flow forward as a sort of offensive weapon, and that's really cool. I also really like how he's embedded the Robo Rider head into the middle there, used one of those sort of ridge pieces that go over the top of like a tire on some sort of like city car. That's in green there, of course. It's at the very front, just sort of nicely wraps around the front of the Robo Rider head there, and then he's kind of embedded a few pieces around it, so it really looks like the head is sort of armored up and protected by a bunch of armor. I think it's really cool, and just a nice way of kind of framing that into the design there. It's really aesthetically pleasing, I think. I also like, too, the stickers at the very back there. They appear to be from some Ninjago set. They kind of look like dragons of sort. I like just the fact of a little bit of stickers, a little bit of printing or something on there, just to add a little bit of spark, a little something nice or something extra. I think it's really, really cool. And the final detail I like, too, is the inclusion of little exhaust port thingamajigs at the end there. Exhaust port, is that the word? That's not the word. Exhaust pipes, engine. It's early, guys. I'm sorry. I don't know what they're called. Those silver beam cylinder things at the back. They're pretty cool. Why? Because this is a robot bicycle, you know? It makes sense that they'd have some sort of, engine details that you can physically see, or, a place for the exhaust to come out of, all that sort of stuff. I think that's really fitting and smart to put that in there. I think it makes a lot of sense. It fits with the aesthetic, and surprisingly, you didn't really see that with much of the original sets, so it makes sense that you'd maybe want to put that into a revamp. So, hey, if you have some of the old Robo Rider sets, or you're like, these Robo Riders are cool, I'm gonna make my own. I don't have any of the pieces from them, but I don't need any of the pieces from them. I'll just build my own versions of the pieces, Maybe you could consider doing that, really basing them off of a motorcycle, really putting in very motorcycle-focused details into there, like a more noticeable engine, that of like a Harley Davidson or something, It's something to consider for sure. But no, really, really dig this. This is awesome. Really simple but effective transformation that I think really ties back to the original sets. That's really nice to see. Let's move now into another mock. Now, this one is super cool. This is actually what inspired the episode. This is, I'm calling it Metrostator, combination of Metroplex and Devastator from Transformers, because it didn't have a name when I found it. And this is by Bandu User, I think. This is going back to one of the early episode 2 or 1 of Biss, where I had a mock on there and I was like, I can't find this one. Turns out it was by IGU. I can't find who built this. Where I found this, I was on Facebook. Somebody posted this in a group that I moderate in, and I was like, hey, can you credit the builder for this, please? Because they're really cool. I want to see what other stuff they've done. And also, credit the people whose art you share, because it's just human decency. And he was like, sorry, I don't know who it was. I found this on another page, and I'm just resharing it. I'm like, all right. But because of that, I can't find who this was. I went to the page that he shared it from, which was this Lego Transformers page, and it said Badu User on it. Or Baidu User, I don't know how you pronounce that. So that's all I got on this. No other pictures, no other details, not even the name, none of that stuff. I'm sorry, I couldn't find it. But hey, maybe you're watching and you're like, Jeff built that. I don't know, Jeff and me go way back. Or I built that. I don't know, whatever. So if you built it, or you know someone who built it, please reach out to me on social media, head over to the Discord server, any of that sort of stuff. Please let me know. I would love to know. I'd love to be able to properly credit this person. And also, I'd just love to see some of the other stuff he built, and I'd love to see further pictures of this. And if more pictures do exist, I'm going to review this again, because this mock's really cool. And I'd love to see if it actually does transform. You'd hope it does. Still, this is a Metroplex Devastator-inspired Transformer, and it's awesome. I love this. I think this is super cool for multiple reasons. One, I love the fact that you can notably see more or less Technic sets just shoved into this. Let me explain Devastator and Metroplex for you if you're not big on Transformer lore. So, we'll focus on Devastator first because he's really cool. Devastator is a really, really awesome Transformer that essentially is a combiner bot. So he's multiple different Transformers that combine into one and make this much larger, like kind of colossal combiner con, who is super cool. And he had this sort of construction focus, so he's all these different construction vehicles that come together and make this big towering menace, which is really cool. And so certainly you can see elements of this of the mock taking inspiration from this original Devastator toy. We also had Metroplex, which was essentially just like a city that transformed into a Transformer, which was pretty cool. Essentially he was like white. He has a very similar color scheme to this guy. And to some degree a similar look, like specifically the head and stuff, I think. I don't know, the head's actually kind of closer to Devastator. Whatever, we're not really here to talk about Transformers, but, maybe you are here to talk about Transformers, so, we'll talk a little bit about it. But I'm more saying he looks like Metroplex because of the color scheme. That's probably it, really. But still, hey, both of those Transformers are really cool, and there's certainly inspiration taken from them. And what I love so much when we focus on Devastator being all the different construction robots and stuff, I love the fact that you can very notably see that in here. And I love the fact, too, of just buying Technic sets and combining them into one big, large robotic transformer, whether it's as simple as I'm just going to shove this and make it a foot. I'm going to put this on his upper arm and make it an upper arm, because that's great. And actually looks really cool too, just aesthetically. I think it's very impressive, very nice to see. So I've always said this before, Technic sets are a wealth of good pieces. If you're building any sort of construction, Bionicle, Hero Factory-like figure, they have pieces that certainly fit in with that style of building. So there's no reason you shouldn't buy some of those sets if you're interested. Of course, don't have to if you don't want to, but those pieces can be helpful. But I think they're even more helpful here when you just more or less make them a part of the construction, which is awesome to see. I also love the fact that the bulk of this appears to be a lot of the larger Technic panels and a lot of the kind of larger rectangular Technic pieces as well. They kind of form the bulk of this design here, really make this mock massive and tall. He's as big as that plant in the background, as you can see there. I don't know. It could be a really small plant. We don't know, but judging from these pieces here, this is quite a towering mock, which is always impressive. Size does and doesn't always matter. It's good. But yeah, I love that. The idea of buying Technic sets to get some of those larger pieces as well, so that you can build a more sort of bulky design like this. Because that's the thing. He's mainly just focusing on using a lot of bigger pieces. A lot of this is probably hollow, specifically like the arms, probably even elements of, probably not the torso. I imagine there's a lot of sort of structural elements in there that are really holding this together. But you'd need elements of this to be hollow and lightweight so that it can support its own weight. If it's a little too heavy in certain areas, it's just going to topple over, But I think that's cool. So really cool to see multiple different ways that some of these Technic sets have been useful here, whether that's the specific pieces inside them or the fact that he's botched them together and made them a part of the design, which is awesome. I also love the idea, and again, if I had multiple pictures of this, if I knew who made this, maybe I'd even be able to see that. I love the idea too that this probably does separate into all the different Constructicons. And heck, maybe all of those individually also transform, The foot takes off, becomes that cement mixer, and also turns into a separate transformer. Maybe, who knows? Or he's just built one big version of a Devastator-inspired Constructicon there, and it looks cool. Who knows? Who knows? It's hard to say when we don't have all the information on this guy, but regardless, he aesthetically looks really, really cool. I do also specifically like that head design. It appears to be using a bunch of Technic lift arms and different things, I believe. It also looks like he has a cigar in his mouth, kind of. I don't know, there's something in his mouth. But it's cool to see that being built out of primarily the same piece, just in different sizes and colors. There are a few other sort of panels and things that give it a bit of texture and stuff. But hey, that's a really nicely designed head design, I think, personally. So I love it. Now, of course, yeah, It's a little disappointing that we don't see this transform. It is a Transformers episode, but again, this is certainly taking inspiration from the Transformers aesthetic. It is that more sort of rectangular design. You are noticing very prominent vehicle-shaped designs, whether that's its feet or its shoulders, or even the torso, where there is sort of like the front of a truck and some wheels and things there, which I personally think is a cool-looking aesthetic. Personally, of course, it maybe doesn't make sense if you build a humanoid character that has noticeable truck parts on it, but it doesn't actually, in fact, turn into a truck, Maybe that doesn't make sense, but hey, sometimes it can look cool too. It's completely up to you. But I think this is a fantastic mark. I think this looks cool. There's some really great stuff going on here. Badu user, or whoever built this, you did a good job. Let's move on now to the next mark. This one is called Steppenhead, and it's by Yuri Facio. Semi-topical. This, just quickly read the description. He says, a bike bioformer. I couldn't decide between Steppenwolf for the mask and Motorhead for the shoulders. So he combined the two names together. Steppenhead, Steppenwolf, and Motorhead combined into one. And of course, yeah, Steppenwolf, Snyder Cut, Justice League, is somewhat topical, but that's, it's just a word. Still, hey, it's cool. But I love this. I think this is great. I love the shoulder design on this, using those raw jaw masks there as two very prominent shoulder pads. I specifically like them for the fact that they, one, just make really cool bulky looking shoulders, but two, I really like them for the fact that they also kind of look like that of a more sort of maybe medieval warrior of sorts. The fact that he has maybe killed these two raw jaws and taken their skulls and now wears them as armor, as some sort of ceremonial sort of power thing or something. It's just a clever way of making armor perhaps as well, I kind of like that aesthetic. It just looks cool, But it's also cool to see them translated onto this bike as well. The fact that, hey, you could very well have a bike that has sort of more animal inspirational looks to it. It's the front of the bike has a dragon head on it, or you got a car but you've painted on some sort of animal on the front of it, perhaps. Kind of is semi-inspirational or semi sort of related to that. You could argue, of course. But I like that, it looks cool. Now, it seems the actual specific transformation of this is fairly straightforward. When we look at the robot mode, it kind of just looks like it's mainly just your basic prefab CCBS construction there, using a typical torso, typical arms and legs, normal CCBS bones, all that sort of stuff, and then it's been armored over the top. And so it kind of looks like when this transforms, I think you could probably take the wheels off the back. What does it look like? It looks like you kind of flip the legs backwards, put the arms towards the sides, I think, and then maybe sort of rotate the head, and you more or less have the bike mode, and then you put like the wheels in somewhere else. You connect them in some fashion. That's pretty cool. I like the fact that nothing too crazy. It is a very simple case of just like, yeah, flip the arms and legs backwards and you're good. It's the case of that. You could buy, I don't know, Therno 3.0 and go, hey, you know what I'm going to do? Flip his arms, flip his legs, put it backwards, turn over his head, flip his armor, and bam, he's an eagle now. Whatever. I don't know. That could work. So that's something you could certainly attempt yourself. Yes, it can be beautiful and complicated and a fun challenge to build a very complex transformation where you have to remove this, flip this, turn this upside down, do this, blah, 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 blah. Or you could just build a prefab normal Hero Factory hero and find a way to make that transform just by doing a flippy-doo. It's a possibility, So it's great to see how simple and easy that transformation is, and that it's not really breaking the bank on too many pieces or too many complex designs, and you still get a pretty cool, fun transformation out of it. And a really cool mark with some nice shoulders. So it's a win-win for me, and this is awesome. So solid work there, Yuri. You've done an awesome bioformer. Yuri's done some other bioformers too, so check out his links in the description there, and look at more of Yuri Facio's work. He's a good builder. Let's go to the next mark now. This is by Moko, and this is called Arcade Bot. So, yeah, I can see it from the picture here. It's an arcade machine that turns into a happy chappy here. It's awesome. It's really cool. It's lovely to see him having done this in multiple colors as well, with multiple facial expressions, using some of those dots pieces there to give them eyes and a mouth. Very simple construction and awesome, just that mouth design, I mean, specifically. As for the arcade machine here, so specifically, I suppose I should say, these are from, I'm gonna Google them so I can get the set numbers and the names and things. These are from some very recent Ninjago Lego sets that are called Arcade Pods. If you're looking for one, you can get one with Lloyd in it. That the set number there is 71716. Yeah. And yeah, they came in a bunch of different colors, shapes, and sizes, all sorts of lovely stuff like so. And I love what Moko's done here. He's going, hey, I'm going to buy these sets and I'm going to make something cool with them, which is great to see. I love the idea of, yeah, doing that, making an arcade machine, a really solid looking one too, but then hiding a little transformation in them as well. That's really, really cool. So how did he hide that transformation? It seems pretty straightforward and simple. It looks like, for the most part, the arms and the legs just fold up into the back of the arcade machine. I don't actually own any of these arcade machine pieces, but to my knowledge, the inside is hollow. Actually, I'm going to include this picture here because you can see it. The inside is in fact hollow. So I love that. The idea of just going, hey, you know what? I'm just going to stuff the arms and the legs in the back here. And then just from the front, it looks like a normal, unassuming arcade machine. But you know what they say, robots in disguise. And you flip those arms out of the back there and boom, you got a cool robot guy. I love that idea. I love that idea a lot. I think it's not only looks cool, it's something you could easily do yourself. Can you do a transformation where you simply hide all the important transformery bits behind, underneath, on top of the mark where you can't see it? But when you look at it from most angles, it looks like a normal, unassuming whatever. But then when you flip something up, when you turn it upside down, when you move something out of the back, you reveal its true nature. I love that idea. I love that idea a lot. So certainly something you could achieve yourself, a fairly simple transformation, and one that not only looks adorable, but looks super cool as well. This one's a little bit more system heavy as well, but there's no reason you couldn't do something like this with similar Bionicle pieces. There are a lot of Bionicle pieces that exist that are fairly large in nature, or just, have gaps behind them, or, that you could just play around with. Or heck, you could buy this arcade machine yourself and do a CCBS version of this, because why not? You very easily could. Might be worth giving it a go. I still see some of these arcade pods at the shops in Australia here. I'm sure in the places you live in the world, you might see some as well. They're still out and about. They're a little bit older at this point, but not too old, They only came out last year, so something to consider, something to have a think about, because, hey, Moko's done an awesome job here. This is such a unique and fun design, and again, a little bit more simple, and a really cool way of doing the transformation just by hiding it. I love it. So that's that mock. Let's move on to the final mock in this episode. A little bit of a shorter episode, a little bit less to talk about in this one, because I got a busy work week today, so I can't do it too long of an episode today. But last mock, this is by Tony A, and it's called DOZER. So I'll quickly read elements of the description here. He says this was built for a mock-off with Joxon. Always fun to do a mock-off, by the way. I've done one or two in my time, where you just challenge someone. You're like, hey, let's both build a mock. Let's have a shared theme, and then we'll get someone to vote between the two, and whoever wins, they win the little challenge that we do. It can be a fun little thing. So let me read the whole description here, just because it also elaborates a bit more on what the little competition between the two of them was. It says, for the first round of my mock-off with Joxon, the third round was switching places. Build your own interpretation of a mock your opponent has made. That's pretty cool. So that's something you could do. You could challenge someone, come up with a theme, and do something fun like that. I will include here it is. Here's the image of the mock that Tony is apparently building his own version of. Very sort of Bumblebee-inspired mock here. The original mock is called Mr. Dozer. That's what Joxon has called that. So Tony's certainly taken a more unique and creative approach on this one here. It's, I think, really cool to see. I also love the fact that on both of these mocks, there is a very discernible Michael Bay Transformers aesthetic to them. Tony even sort of said that here. He says, I chose to build Mr. Dozer and took the Transformers-esque style and Michael Bayed it. I like that. The reason I like that is because, of course, this episode is about Transformers, in case you haven't guessed. And yes, this mock doesn't transform at all, which is a shame, because it's always nice to see. But, like I said, there's nothing wrong with taking the aesthetic of a Transformer. Whether that's Michael Bay Transformers with a more sort of greebled aesthetic to them, or like the specific toys, very similar to the Metro Devastator Plex that we saw before, I think Transformer aesthetics can be beautiful, and I think this is a great example of that. I love how all these wires and the greebled aesthetic looks, and I love the fact that he's done some really nice color blocking here so that the yellow armor is over the top, has this lovely, smooth, Hero Factory looking aesthetic to it. And then underneath we see this very greebled, robotic, mechanical look with the wires. and the more sort of ridged and robotic-looking designs. It's a really cool mesh of textures and styles. It's beautiful, and that is, again, very akin to a Michael Bay style Transformer. I love the head design on this too, you know, a very similar aesthetic to that there, with specifically around the mouth, having that sloped grill plate there, how that very much looks Transformery. And I love the horns coming out the top there in yellow with a bit more of a smoother aesthetic to them. But also just the fact that they're kind of horns of that cool mono eye. I personally just think that looks really menacing and evil looking and cool. This guy certainly looks a bit more like a villain to some degree. And I think this is a very fitting head design for that. I love his chain weapon as well. Just the fact that it's a simple weapon. He's literally just used those chain elements there, but it certainly looks super cool, and I think it works well as a weapon. You know, you don't really see chains being used a huge amount, specifically as just a weapon in Bionicle MOCs as much these days. So it's nice and pretty refreshing to see. It kind of has little Meltdown vibes from Hero Factory as well, and so I think that weapon is to some degree a callback to that as well. I like that. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the bulk of what I wanted to talk about on this MOC specifically, is just the fact that it seems very noticeably inspired by aesthetics from Transformers, even though it doesn't specifically transform, and that's still something great to do. By all means, Google Transformers, watch some Transformer movies, watch some Transformers animated series, and take inspiration from some of the character designs in there, because there's some pretty cool character designs, and certainly it's something worth thinking about when you want to build your own unique stuff. For sure. So, love your work, Tony. That's it for today's episode. I hope you very much enjoyed it, and hopefully you're inspired to build some Bionicle Bioformers or Transformers of your own. That's it for this episode. Check the links in the description for the MOCs you saw in today's episode, and be sure to check out some of the other stuff these builders have done. They're very talented builders, and they deserve a little bit more love. People like Moko have a bunch more Transformers. Pretty much all of these guys do. So definitely worth looking into some more if you're interested. Additionally, in the links in the description is the submission email. You can find that there. You can also see it on your screen right now. If you have some Bionicle Transformers of your own, if you have any MOCs that you want to see on this show, submit them to the submission email that you're currently seeing on your screen right now, and one day it'll appear on the show. Although I got a lot of submissions to work through, so your patience is, of course, very key there. Additionally, there's links to my social media below. You can see some of the things that I've got going on my Instagram, Facebook, Flickr, all that sort of stuff. Additionally, there's links to my Patreon as well, so if you would like access to my Patreon exclusive podcast or my exclusive Patreon Discord server where you can have some nice private chats with me if you're interested, and a few other fun quirks as well, Patreon is the place to go. Otherwise, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. Happy building, and bye for now.